The medical station drifted in the shadow of a dying star, its metal skin glowing faintly from the radiation storms outside. From the distance, it looked like a jagged black crown, suspended in eternal night. Inside, endless halls of white light hummed with machines, scanners, and the whispers of alien doctors moving between laboratories. At the very center of the station was Laboratory Theta 9, a place no visitor ever left alive. This was where Dr. Verix worked. Dr. Verix was a Zyran, tall with translucent blue skin stretched over sharp bones and long fingers that always twitched with restless energy. His eyes glowed faint green, reflecting light like glass. Across the galaxy, his name carried both respect and fear. He was a master of alien physiology, the one who broke open the secrets of dozens of species and mapped their weaknesses for science and for war. But when it came to humans, he was amused. To him, they were nothing more than latecomers to the galactic stage. Crude, fragile, short-lived, they had spread into space far too early, in his opinion. He often mocked them in lectures. Their bodies are soft, their bones weak, their minds clouded with emotion. They are a mistake of evolution, nothing more. Now at last he had one to study properly. A human soldier had been captured after a border skirmish and transported to the station. His name was irrelevant to the doctor. He called him only Specimen 47. The soldier lay unconscious in a containment chamber, metal restraints locking his arms and legs to a cold slab. Dr. Verix stood above him, sneering. So fragile. So loud in your wars, and yet inside. Nothing but meat. He turned to his assistants. Prepare the scans. Let us see what this primitive body hides. The assistants nodded, moving quickly. The doctor lifted a vial of fresh human blood, taken only minutes before. He held it up to the light, disgust curling across his face. Look at this, he said mockingly. Dirty red liquid. So primitive. My species refined our blood centuries ago, replacing waste-filled cells with engineered perfection. And yet humans still carry this filth. He let out a cruel laugh, and the assistants echoed him nervously. Still, the doctor placed the blood under his scanner, activating streams of light that sliced through the sample. Screens lit up, filling with endless data, cell structures, proteins, energy flows. For a moment, everything looked as expected. Weak membranes, simple organelles, nothing special. Dr. Verix smirked, ready to call the results predictable. Then the readings shifted. On one screen, the cells began to tear under radiation exposure. It was normal, until they didn't die. Instead, they repaired themselves, stitching their walls back together with alarming speed. What? Dr. Verix blinked, leaning closer. He increased the test level, exposing the cells to a chemical agent that normally shredded DNA strands beyond recognition. The human cells staggered, slowed, and then adapted. New chains formed, twisted, and rebuilt faster than his machines could track. The doctor's smile faded. This is not right. One assistant whispered, perhaps the machines are misaligned. No, Dr. Verix's voice was sharp. He ran the scan again, double, triple checking. The results repeated every time. The human blood not only survived the damage, it fought back. The cells multiplied, weaving tighter bonds, becoming stronger than before. Each attack seemed to make them more resistant, more dangerous. Dr. Verix felt his throat tighten. For a Zyran, it was an unfamiliar sensation. Fear. He shook his head quickly. It must be a fluke. A rare mutation. A statistical error. He forced a laugh, though it sounded hollow, but as he looked at the data spreading across his screens, something gnawed at him. No species he had ever studied, not the scaled Carlians, not the insectoid Veth, had shown anything like this. He whispered to himself, almost unwilling to hear his own words. These cells, they refused to die. The human soldier, still unconscious in the containment chamber, stirred slightly as if sensing the doctor's unease. His chest rose and fell steadily, his body calm, unbothered by the machines buzzing around him. Dr. Verix turned away quickly. He didn't like the feeling in his stomach. He didn't like the idea that something inside this primitive animal might defy his understanding. He tapped commands into his console. More tests, higher stress levels. He would prove to himself that this was nothing unusual, that humans were just weak creatures dressed up in noise and chaos. And yet deep down, a seed of doubt had already taken root. For the first time in his long career, Dr. Verix wondered if he had been wrong. As the dying star outside sent another pulse of red light across the station, shadows flickered over the doctor's face. His assistant stood quietly, sensing his unease. The scanners hummed louder, gathering more data, more proof of something that should not exist. And as Dr. Verix stared at the screens, he felt the weight of an unsettling question pressing at the edges of his mind. What secret lies inside human biology? The lab felt colder and the silence heavier. The doctor told himself it was nothing. Just a fluke. Just one strange sample. But he couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The lab was silent except for the hum of machines. Data flowed across glowing screens, each line confirming what Dr. Verix refused to believe. Human cells were not only alive, they were winning. He leaned closer, his long fingers tapping the console nervously. "Again," he ordered. "Run the viral test." An assistant, a younger Ziran with pale skin, hesitated. "Doctor, we already—" "Again!" Verix snapped, his voice sharp like broken glass. The assistant obeyed, feeding another sample of human blood into the chamber. A thin hiss filled the air as the blood was bathed in a mist of alien viruses. These viruses had ended entire species before. They were considered perfect weapons of biology. No life form survived them. On the monitor, the red cells began to falter. For one breath, it seemed the viruses had won. Dr. Verix allowed himself a cruel smile. Then before his eyes, the cells fought back. They devoured the virus particles, breaking them apart, absorbing the fragments like fuel. The cells pulsed brighter on the screen, stronger, faster. "No," Verix whispered. His voice trembled. The assistants gathered behind him, their glowing eyes wide. One muttered softly, "They adapted." Verix's jaw tightened. "Increase the dose. Triple it." They obeyed, and the chamber filled with a storm of deadly pathogens. Any other species' blood would have dissolved instantly. But the human sample twisted, changed, and became something new. The viruses stopped multiplying. Instead, they began to collapse, eaten alive by the very cells they were supposed to destroy. Dr. Verix slammed his clawed hand on the console. "Impossible. This is impossible." He turned to the others, searching for an explanation. "It's a malfunction. A contaminated sample. Humans are fragile creatures, nothing more." But his voice lacked certainty now. His words sounded like excuses. The assistants exchanged nervous glances. They had followed Dr. Verix for years, had listened to his endless mocking of human biology. Now the data on the screens painted a very different story. One assistant dared to speak. "Doctor, if this is real, then humans are not fragile at all." "They are." "Don't silence," Verix shouted, his long neck snapping toward the speaker. His green eyes burned. "You will not question me." He turned back to the screens, but his hands shook as he entered new commands. He ordered nanotech probes, machines designed to slice apart cells at the smallest level. The probes swarmed into the blood sample, tearing through strands of DNA. For a moment, the cells collapsed. Broken pieces floated in the scanner's light. Verix exhaled, relieved. At last, proof. But the relief lasted only seconds. The fragments began to pull themselves together. Strands of DNA twisted, rewove, and sealed. New cells formed, stronger than before. The probes fought harder, but the cells learned with terrifying speed. They avoided the attacks, outmaneuvered the machines, and crushed them like insects. One by one, the nanoprobes went dark. The screen cleared, showing only thriving human cells pulsing with unnatural life. Dr. Verix staggered back from the console. His assistants whispered in fear. "What kind of creatures are they?" one muttered. "Not creatures," another replied softly. "Survivors," Verix snarled. "No, they are vermin. They should not be able to resist this. No biology adapts so fast." He gripped the edge of the table, his claws digging into the metal. And yet, he remembered ancient Ziran war tales, spoken only in whispers, of enemies who healed from wounds that should have killed them, warriors who fought through poisons and plagues. He had always dismissed them as myths. But now, staring at the monitors, he wondered if those myths had been about humans. The captured soldier stirred on the table, still unconscious, but shifting slightly, his face calm despite the restraints. The sight sent a chill through the doctor's bones. It was as if the man's body already knew it could not be broken. Verix barked orders to his team. "Prepare a live test. I want to see how this human responds in real time." Bring the toxins. His assistants hesitated. Doctor, if the human resists, if he survives, then what does that mean for the rest of us? Dr. Varix snapped his head toward them. It means nothing. It means humans are dangerous pests, and it is our duty to dissect every weakness before they spread further into the galaxy. Do not question my orders again. But his words rang hollow even to himself. His heart, if it could be called that, beat faster. His mind refused to settle. The machines beeped again, displaying the final results of the blood scans. The lab lights burned cold white across steel walls. Machines hummed, displaying endless streams of alien symbols. But the real silence came from the soldiers and assistants, now staring at the man strapped to the table. Sergeant Kane's eyes were open. They were not weak or dazed like the aliens expected. They were sharp, cold watching. Dr. Varix felt his throat tighten. He had seen countless specimens awake during study, and most looked confused, terrified, broken. But this human's gaze was steady, calculating. It was as if he was the one studying them. Restrain his mind, Varix ordered quickly, masking his unease. Sedatives, neural dampers, now. 2 assistants rushed to the control console and activated the suppressors. A wave of blue energy washed over Kane's skull, designed to cloud the brain and crush higher thought. Any other species would have gone limp. Kane's eyes narrowed. He blinked once, twice. Then, with a slow exhale, his gaze cleared again. Unbroken, Dr. Varix's jaw tightened. Impossible. The soldier's voice finally cut through the silence, low and steady. You shouldn't play with things you don't understand. Every assistant froze. The human wasn't begging, wasn't panicking. He was warning them. Varix forced a laugh, though it cracked at the edges. Bold words for an animal tied to a table. He leaned close, his translucent skin glowing faintly in the sterile light. You are here to be studied. Nothing more. Kane tilted his head slightly. You think so? The doctor turned away, trying to recover his confidence. He gestured for another tray. Bring the toxin injectors. Let us see how much your body can truly resist. One assistant hesitated. Doctor, if he survives, do it! Varix snapped, his voice sharp enough to silence them. They approached with a vial of shimmering green liquid, Zyran Deathbane, a toxin so lethal that one drop could kill a beast 10 times their size. No species had ever shown resistance. The injector pierced Kane's arm with a hiss. The toxin spread instantly, rushing through his veins. His body tensed, muscles tightening against the restraints. For a moment, his skin paled. The assistants leaned forward, waiting for the collapse. But then, his breathing steadied. The color returned. His heart rate, flashing on the monitors, slowed to normal. Within seconds, his body had neutralized the poison. Dr. Varix stumbled back, his long fingers curling against the console. No, 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 no. Kane turned his head slightly, eyes locking onto the alien doctor. That all you've got? The words were calm, almost mocking. The assistants whispered in disbelief. Fear crept into their voices. He should be dead, one said. No one survives Deathbane, another muttered. Varix silenced them with a glare, but his own confidence cracked. Sweat, thick and silver, rolled down the side of his neck. He activated the next test, thermal burns. Mechanical arms descended, heating Kane's skin with plasma heat. Any living flesh should have charred instantly. Instead, the burns closed almost as quickly as they formed. Blisters vanished. Skin restored itself. One assistant whispered what they were all thinking. He heals. Faster than we can wound him. Kane gave a small, humorless smile. I warned you, Dr. Varix hissed through his teeth. His pride, his years of mocking humanity as weak, crumbled with every second. Yet he clung to denial. This proves nothing. Your body is only delaying the inevitable. We will break you. Kane shook his head slowly. You don't understand. You can't break what was built to endure. His voice carried a weight the assistants could feel in their bones. The doctor's long fingers trembled as he switched to voice logs, trying to speak with authority. Specimen resists neural suppression, resists Class V toxins, resists plasma damage. Adaptation. Unmeasurable. His words cracked as he said them. Further testing required, but he knew the truth. Every test he tried only revealed more strength. The human was not bending. The human was winning. Kane lay back against the restraints, strangely calm. His eyes flicked to the assistants. Some of them avoided his gaze, shame and fear twisting in their expressions. He spoke again, his tone like iron. "You think I'm the one trapped here, but you're the ones playing with fire. Keep pushing, and you'll learn what humanity really is." The room grew colder. The hum of the machines felt louder, sharper. Dr. Verix tried to laugh, but the sound broke in his throat. "Empty threats. You are nothing." But deep inside he felt something he had not known in decades. Fear. And for the first time, the great Dr. Verix realized he was no longer the master of this laboratory. He was the one being studied. Word of the humans spread like fire. At first, only a handful of assistants knew, but laboratories never stayed quiet for long. Scientists gossiped in whispers while carrying trays. Guards murmured to one another in the corridors, and soon, almost everyone aboard the station had heard the same story. The human survives everything. In the cafeteria, Zyran medics lowered their voices, afraid the walls were listening. "They say the blood fought viruses." "Not possible," another replied, though his hands trembled. "And Deathbane. Did you hear? He lived." Rumors grew faster than truth, twisting into myths before the day ended. Some said the human was immortal. Others claimed his body carried a plague that destroyed weapons from within. The more the stories spread, the more restless the station became. Inside Laboratory Theta 9, the truth was even worse. Dr. Verix doubled his tests. His pride demanded it. If the galaxy ever learned that he, the great alien doctor, had been rattled by a human, his reputation would collapse. So he worked harder, desperate to prove that humans could still be broken. He ordered Kane's skin cut with surgical beams, only to watch wounds seal within minutes. He drilled into muscle fibers and they rebuilt stronger. He forced electric shocks through his body, expecting seizures, but Kane only gritted his teeth and endured. The assistants began to avoid the doctor's eyes. One muttered as they watched, "Every strike makes him harder. He is not resisting, he is evolving." Another whispered back, "What if we are teaching him how to defeat us?" Dr. Verix slammed a clawed fist onto the table, making the metal groan. "Fools, do you hear yourselves? He is a man, a creature of flesh, nothing more. He cannot learn from pain, he is reacting by instinct alone." But his words rang hollow. He saw their doubt. He felt his own. Kane, still strapped to the table, spoke softly. "You're afraid, Doctor." Verix spun toward him, his long neck stiff. "Afraid of you?" he hissed through sharp teeth. "Do not mistake curiosity for fear." Kane gave the faintest of smiles. "You keep testing, and every time I win. How long before you admit the truth?" The assistants fell silent. They did not dare answer, but the human's words echoed in their minds. When Verix left the lab that night, the whispers grew louder. One assistant leaned toward another. "If one human is this strong, imagine their armies." "Perhaps the legends were true," the other replied, voice low. "The deathless warriors of the old wars." "Don't speak of it," the first hissed, glancing at the door. "The doctor will hear," but the fear was already spreading, deeper than Verix could control. In the corridors, guards began checking the human's chamber twice as often, but they lingered outside, refusing to go in. Some admitted quietly that they dreamed of the human breaking free, walking through the halls, unstoppable. Meanwhile, the human soldier listened. Even strapped down, Kane felt the weight of the aliens' unease. He caught their glances, the way their hands shook when they touched the machines. He knew fear when he saw it. The next morning, Dr. Verix returned to find his lab quieter than usual. His assistants avoided him, their shoulders tense. He noticed the way they looked at Kane, not as a prisoner, but almost as a force. Verix's pride burned hotter. He needed control back. He needed to crush this human, if not physically, then at least symbolically. He addressed the team with false confidence. "Listen well. You think this human proves something? That his body is special? It is not. Every species has its tricks, its strengths, but humans are nothing more than lucky accidents. I will prove it today." He set up a new test, radiation exposure. Pure concentrated bursts that shredded cells into ash. No living creature survived it. The assistants hesitated. "Doctor, this may breach the treaty protocols." "Do it," Verix hissed, his glowing eyes narrowing. "He will die like the rest." The chamber filled with light as radiation poured over Kane. The machines screamed warnings. For minutes his skin blistered, burned. then slowly, horrifyingly repaired itself again. When the light faded, the human opened his eyes, scarred skin already smoothing over. His voice was ragged but steady. "That the best you've got?" The assistants stepped back, terror plain on their faces. Dr. Verix's claws dug into his palms. He wanted to shout, but the words would not come. His pride was crumbling, replaced by a crawling fear that spread like ice through his veins. And as he stared at Kane, still alive, still defiant, he realized something worse than failure. It wasn't only him who feared the human now. The entire station did. Dr. Verix sat alone in his private chamber, the cold glow of his monitors washing across his face. The lab was silent now, his assistants dismissed for the night, but the data remained, flashing in front of him like a curse. Lines of code, charts of resilience. Every test, every injection, every wave of fire and toxin, it all ended the same way. The human survived. The human adapted. The human grew stronger. His clawed fingers trembled as he scrolled through the results. His breathing grew shallow, uneven. He was Dr. Verix, the most respected biologist of the Zyran species. His entire career was built on one belief, that life could be dissected, catalogued, and understood. That he was the one who held mastery over the secrets of biology. But this human shattered that belief with every heartbeat. Verix whispered aloud, though no one was listening. Why? Why do they endure? He brought up the footage of the radiation test again. He watched frame by frame as Kane's body broke down under the blinding light, skin burning, cells collapsing, and then watched it knit itself back together, slow but unstoppable, until nothing remained but unscarred flesh. His stomach twisted. His pride screamed that it was a trick, a deception, something engineered. But his mind, the scientist inside him, whispered the truth. Humans were built for survival. He poured himself a glass of clear liquid from the dispenser, but his hand shook so badly the cup rattled against the table. He had never shaken before, not in all his decades of cutting open creatures and mapping their biology. This was different. This was fear. The memory of old Zyran legends surfaced in his mind, stories dismissed as superstition, ancient enemies who fought through every plague and poison, warriors who would rise again even after being struck down. His teachers had told him they were myths, warnings for children, but what if they weren't? What if the myths had always been about humans? Verix pushed the thought away and opened his personal logs. He had to write something, anything, to make sense of the madness. His voice cracked as he recorded, Specimen 47, human male. Results remain outside all known biological frameworks. Subjects of note: resistance to pathogens, toxins, and cellular decay. Regeneration exceeds Veth swarm queens by a factor of 12. Adaptation rate, his words slowed, unmeasurable. If this continues, humans cannot be considered fragile life. They must be classified as predators. He stopped the recording, his throat tight. Even saying the words felt like betrayal to everything he believed. He replayed Kane's voice in his mind. "You're afraid, Doctor." Verix slammed his claws against the table, trying to bury the memory. "No," he shouted at the empty room. "I am not afraid of a primitive animal." His voice echoed off the steel walls, but the silence that followed only made him feel smaller. The truth was gnawing at him. He was afraid, and it wasn't just Kane, it was all of them. All of humanity. If one soldier could endure so much, what would an army of them do? What would a fleet of humans, each with blood like fire and bodies that healed faster than wounds could be dealt, mean for the galaxy? He imagined Zyran warships burning, collapsing under endless waves of soldiers who refused to die. He imagined worlds falling, not to numbers or technology, but to sheer endurance. He clutched his head, claws digging into his skin. No, they are not gods. They are not unstoppable. They cannot be. But the fear in his chest told him otherwise. Sleep never came that night. He sat in the dark, staring at the glow of his monitors, replaying the tests again and again, hoping to find an error, a weakness, something to explain it away. There was nothing. By morning his eyes were bloodshot, his hands shaking. When he returned to the lab, his assistants looked at him strangely. His once commanding posture was gone, replaced with something hunched, broken. He barked orders, but his voice cracked. He demanded new experiments, but his assistants hesitated before obeying. They could see what he refused to admit. Dr. Verix was unraveling. Kane noticed too. Strapped to the table, his calm gaze followed the doctor's every move. When Varix came close, Kane whispered, "You finally understand, don't you?" Varix froze. "Understand what?" "That you're not studying me," Kane said softly. "You're witnessing what's coming." The words sank deep into the doctor's bones. He staggered back, unable to answer, and in that moment, surrounded by the fear of his staff and the unbroken strength of his prisoner, Dr. Varix realized something he could not put into words. It wasn't the human strapped to the table that terrified him. It was the thought of billions more, waiting beyond the stars. The restraints hummed with energy as Kane lay strapped to the examination table. For weeks he had endured needles, poisons, fire, and radiation. Each time he healed. Each time he grew stronger, and now he was ready. Dr. Varix hovered nearby, muttering to himself as he adjusted the scanners. His assistant stood back uneasy, whispering. Everyone could feel it. The doctor was unraveling. His once proud posture had turned into frantic jerks, his orders snapping like brittle glass. Kane watched him closely. The doctor was distracted, his eyes bloodshot, his hands shaking. It was the moment Kane had been waiting for. The restraints were designed for normal captives, creatures who screamed and begged, who broke under the weight of the doctor's experiments. But Kane was not normal. His muscles had been adapting all this time, fibers repairing faster than damage could form. Every test, every torture had only made him stronger. He flexed his wrists ever so slightly. The restraints groaned. No one noticed. Varix slammed a claw against the console. "Useless," he shouted. "No framework can contain it. No equation can explain it." His voice cracked into a snarl, and his assistant stepped back in fear. Kane smiled faintly. The fear was spreading, not just in Varix, but in everyone around him. "Doctor," Kane said calmly, "you've studied me long enough. Do you know what comes next?" Varix spun on him, eyes wide and wild. "Silence. You are a specimen, nothing more." Kane's smile deepened. "No, I'm a soldier." With a sudden surge, Kane tore at the restraints. The steel screamed as it bent, sparks flying as the energy fields overloaded. The room froze. Assistants gasped. Monitors blared warnings. Varix stumbled back, disbelief etched across his face. "No," he hissed. "Impossible!" Kane ripped free, chains clattering to the ground. He stood tall, his body scarred but unbroken, eyes burning with fury. The guards rushed in, weapons raised. Kane moved before they could fire. His fist crashed into the nearest guard, sending the alien sprawling against the wall with bone-snapping force. Another guard swung a shock baton, but Kane caught it, ripped it free, and drove it into the alien's chest. Sparks flew as the body collapsed. Panic exploded. Assistants screamed and scattered. Alarms howled through the corridors. Red lights flashed as the medical station locked down. Varix backed into the corner, claws trembling. "Focus, you can't." "You should not exist." Kane stepped closer, each stride echoing like thunder. "I told you," he said, voice calm but deadly. "We don't break." The last two guards tried to fire their plasma rifles, but Kane was already moving. He grabbed one by the throat, using him as a shield as bolts of energy ripped across the lab. Then he hurled the limp body at the other, knocking him flat. The room fell silent except for the wail of alarms. Kane stood among the wreckage, his chest rising steadily, his wounds already closing. Varix stared, frozen in terror. His entire career, his beliefs, his arrogance, had been crushed in seconds. Kane turned his gaze on him. "You wanted to know the secret of human biology? Here it is, we don't stop. Not when we're wounded. Not when we're trapped. Not when the whole galaxy laughs at us. We keep fighting. That's what makes us human." Varix's voice cracked as he whispered, "You'll destroy us all." Kane leaned closer, his shadow falling over the trembling doctor. "No, we'll survive you." With that, Kane shoved him aside and stormed toward the door. The reinforced lock resisted for only a moment before his enhanced strength ripped it open. The corridors beyond were chaos, sirens flashing, soldiers scrambling, doors sealing. But Kane was unstoppable now. He moved like a storm, tearing through anyone in his path. Plasma bolts burned his skin, but his body healed as fast as the wounds appeared. Soldiers shouted, panicked, as their weapons proved useless. Doors slammed shut only to be ripped apart moments later. Word spread through the station like fire. The human has broken free. In every shadowed corridor, The Ashrans whispered the same thing. The impossible had happened. Their greatest biologist had tried to break a human and failed. Kane reached an airlock, alarms shrieking as systems tried to contain him. Through the window, the dying star blazed, its light flooding the chamber in gold and red. He touched the panel, and for the first time he smiled, not in triumph, but in grim determination. Earth was waiting, and the galaxy would soon learn what it meant to face humanity unchained. The alarms of the Zyran medical station still howled, long after Kane had vanished into the black corridors. Smoke hung in the air, walls cracked from the humans' escape. Guards searched desperately, but none dared speak his name out loud. In the ruined lab, Dr. Varick sat slumped against the console, his claws shaking. His assistants hovered nearby, whispering in fear. For the first time in his long career, the arrogant alien doctor felt completely powerless. He had mocked the human, laughed at his biology, ridiculed his blood. But now those same cells haunted his every thought. He saw them behind his eyelids, repairing faster than machines, fighting off poisons, rebuilding stronger every time. The galaxy had always called humans weak. Now Varix knew the truth. They were the most dangerous species he had ever encountered. One of his assistants broke the silence. "Doctor, what do we tell the High Council?" Varix raised his trembling eyes. "We tell them everything." Messages sped from the station like fire racing through dry grass. Encrypted warnings, urgent transmissions, recordings of Kane tearing through guards, breaking steel restraints, shrugging off plasma fire. The words spread quickly, whispered from one ship to another, from one world to the next. The human escaped. The human cannot be stopped. On the capital world of the Zyran Empire, members of the council watched the recordings in silence. Some leaned forward, horrified, as they saw Kane heal wounds in seconds. Others recoiled as he tore open blast doors with his bare hands. "This is a threat to every species in the galaxy," one counselor muttered. "No," another replied grimly. "This is not a threat. This is a warning." Meanwhile, Kane had found his way to a stolen transport ship. The craft shook violently as it tore away from the station, flames trailing from its damaged engines. Inside the cockpit, Kane sat with steady hands, his face lit by the glow of stars. He remembered every test, every taunt, every time Dr. Varix had called him weak. Those words no longer mattered. What mattered was the fear in the doctor's eyes when he realized the truth. Humanity was not weak. Humanity was the one species the galaxy should never have provoked. Back on the medical station, Dr. Varix made his final report. His voice trembled as he recorded the message, his pride broken, his reputation already turning to ash. Humans are unlike any species we have ever known. Their cells resist decay, adapt to toxins, and heal at impossible rates. Their strength increases under stress. Their minds sharpen in danger. We believe them weak because they bleed easily, because they look fragile. But they are not fragile. They are forged by struggle. Every scar makes them stronger. Every wound teaches them to survive. I mocked them. I thought them nothing more than primitive animals. But I was wrong. The truth is far worse. They are survivors, built to outlast every enemy, every disaster, every war. They cannot be broken. They can only adapt. And if they rise together, if they stand as one, the galaxy will tremble. He paused, his claws digging into the console. His final words were almost a whisper. "Do not provoke the humans, or they will show us what survival really means." The report spread beyond the Zyran Empire. Smugglers carried it into neutral space. Traders whispered of it in shadowed ports. Soon across the galaxy, alien rulers woke in the night, thinking of a human soldier who could not be killed. Some dismissed the stories as lies. Others tried to silence them. But the rumors only grew stronger. And on Earth, when Kane returned, the leaders listened carefully. He told them everything. The experiments, the fear, the escape. His words lit a fire in their hearts. "They are afraid of us," Kane said simply. "They finally understand." For generations, humans had been mocked as the weakest race in the galaxy. Now humanity knew the truth. They were survivors, and the galaxy feared survivors more than any weapon. On a distant world, a group of alien mercenaries sat in a dark cantina, replaying the stolen recording on a small projector. The image flickered, Kane tearing apart restraints, his wounds healing in seconds, his voice calm and steady as he warned the doctor, "We don't stop. We keep fighting." The mercenaries sat in silence, their drinks untouched. Finally, one of them muttered, "If even half of this is true, the humans are death-walking." No one argued. And so the legend began. Across stars and stations, the story of the unbreakable human spread like wildfire. He was no longer just Sergeant Kane. He was the first symbol of what humanity truly was. Not weak, not fragile, but the one species the galaxy should never underestimate. Because once humanity was mocked, now they were feared. And soon they would be unstoppable.